This is my channel, Evolve with Monat. For those of you that are new here, I am a professional intuitive empath. So good to see you on the late night. I have got my screen in a funny place here, so hopefully you guys can see me okay. Yes, the screen is going to be black essentially. It is literally the middle of the night, 3 something, I am sure. The message today, can you build with them? Couldn't sleep. And this was one of the themes that I worked with clients a lot on today, and I wanted to share it with you. So many times in our relationships, empaths and divine feminine specifically, we, and I don't even know if it's just relegated to the metaphysical group. I think that women in general seek out potential in their mates, right? Because we all understand that we're works in progress, that none of us are perfect. So we try to give that leeway to our mates. Now, unfortunately, when you haven't established healthy boundaries and you haven't built up healthy boundaries, what you will do is get into situations with people where you overextend their warranty. They get the extended warranty of your love and your patience that they might not necessarily deserve. And so that's the thing that I want to ask you just very quickly here. Can you build with them? And what that means is, can you build a life? Can you build a business? Can you build a family? Can you build a savings? Can you build a conversation? Let's start there. Can we build similarities? Can we build similar interests? Do we have the same sexual energy? Do we have the same communication style? Now, the thing about relationships is we will not always be matched up. Each one of us will not fit specifically in a certain box. We will all have our differences. There are 5 love languages, and we all speak different love languages. So, if your primary love language is something your partner may not speak it, the 5 primary love languages are acts of service, words of affirmation, quality time, a physical touch, and gifts. Okay, essentially, these are the 5 ways that humans primarily love each other. You can be any combination of those. Okay, I have a primary love language. For me, it's words of affirmation, followed behind acts of service and gifts. Okay, that doesn't mean quality time and touch don't matter to me, but that's how I love. If I love you, this is how I love you primarily. You'll notice these things first, okay? Everybody has their different love languages. You can build a relationship with someone that doesn't speak your love language, but it will be harder. I'm not going to lie to you. It's going to take more effort. It's going to take more time. It's going to take more energy. And so what they're saying is it's okay if you are not aligned that way, because if you have a partner who's willing to build with you, they will figure out what your love language is eventually, or you can communicate it with them or take tests or watch a YouTube video. There are a myriad of ways to get on the same page with your partner. But the first ingredient for that is willingness. Are they willing to cooperate? And a lot of us spent time in relationships where people didn't cooperate. If the partner doesn't speak your love language, but they're willing to cooperate, they can learn it and learn to adapt. Also, we're powerful manifestors, empath. If you have a partner who is absolutely unwilling to work with you, or incapable or struggles speaking your love language, the universe is so gracious to send in people that do fulfill us in different areas of our relationship. So our long-term life partnership may not be what we extract from a co-worker friendship or a bestie friendship or a sibling relationship, but there are people that will come in and fill us in all ways, meaning that you have the life in all ways that you manifest and feel you deserve. I've been really specific about that being sexual, but I think that in all relationships, you have the kind of friendships and relationships that you feel that you deserve. Now, let's get back to this. Can you build with them? You have had experiences, if you're here on this channel listening, with narcissistic empath dynamics, and that means that you were in an abusive situation with somebody who wasn't honoring you and probably was going out of their way to sabotage you, had a whole idea of thoughts or energies you may not have even been aware of. So you're building and building, but it feels so uphill, it feels so tedious, it feels never ending, it feels like you'll never be successful. And some of us will stay there, especially as empaths and divine feminines, because if we have seen the potential of our masculine, we will instantaneously think, I know if I can just stick this out, if I'm a stick beside him, if I just stick beside him, he will get to the place he needs to be, or she will get to the place that she needs to be. That is absolutely not true, empath. You cannot just stick beside somebody and hope that they stick beside thee because they won't always do that. And beyond not sticking beside you, if they're sabotaging you at every single turn, it will be such an exhausting waste of your time. And depending on how many years you pour into the relationship, it could be a waste of your life. Now, this is why, after you extract yourself out of the narcissistic empath dynamic, it is imperative that you start to really create from contrast. Let's talk about what that means. It means that you are going to create a new future and a new reality from what you did not like. And I know that seems counterintuitive if we're thinking about the secret or manifestation, but hear me here. We always, as humans, create from contrast. If you touched a hot stove, you didn't like the experience of being burnt. You will now in the future not touch the eye of the stove when it's red hot because the contrast of fingers that burn and fingers that aren't burnt is powerful. It's a powerful teacher. You get it? So once bitten, twice shy, once burnt by a narc, never ready to die. um, Meaning you are no longer in that position where you're going to sacrifice your life anymore for anybody else. And that means that relationships are bound to get easier for you. That's what I want you to hear. You are going to enter into a space where you're going to be able to build with people because you're going to create from the contrast of what you had and what you felt like you lost, which was not a loss. It was probably your greatest boon towards success, was extracting yourself out of whatever toxic relationship led you to this video. So what I want you to hear is that building with someone is beautiful, and what you can do in a shorter amount of time will astound you. I remember, and we all have our stories. Please comment below yours or comment now if you're here listening. I'm not really looking at the chat yet, but I will definitely try to take a look before I log out. But listen, guys, the energy of this is that I know for personally my journey, I spent years trying to build something with somebody who was completely ill-equipped and did not have the same vision and had a lot of issues with communication. So what I created, even in the midst of the separation, I was creating from contrast. I'm seeing people come in, yo, yo, hey, 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 son. Sun as in Leo, maybe. Sun as in bright. Um, so what I did was I created from contrast in the midst of the relationship crumbling what I wanted. I think it's heavily important to, I love the bright sun in the middle of the night, land of the midnight sun. Interesting. I think it's super important to manifest by writing and scripting. And so when I was in my darkest areas regarding a relationship where I was doing a lot of work and building and there were no results happening, and I was like, I know I'm communicating clearly. I know that I'm being articulate. I know that I am being loving and empathetic. I know that I'm following Zig Ziglar's principle of seeking first to understand someone else's situation and then to be understood. So, why is it that I'm not having success here? It's because the other person was hell bent on not allowing success because that was their control mechanism. They also believed that they were a failure, so they manifested failures in all areas of their life. So that means that it trickled over to me. Another message about energy transference, sweet empaths. I have a video coming up here next about that. No empaths. We can't just sleep with anyone. We don't get to participate in today's culture. The hookup culture is not for us for a myriad of reasons I will explain in the next video. However, what I will say back to this with the building, if you cannot build with someone, you will find yourself incredibly frustrated. And you may be used to failures because you were around narcissistic or toxic dynamics if you're an empath or divine feminine where people wanted to sabotage you. We are not always the victims, and that's why I want us to empower ourselves. Once you go through a certain level or gauntlet of abuse and you extract yourself out of it, once you see the truth of how people can be cravenous and vile, once you understand that sometimes people can sabotage you in smile in your face, the warmest of smiles, like butter wouldn't melt in their mouth, then you know how to empower yourself for protection. Now, it's not just about protection, but it's about growth in the future with an actual person, human connection that has the potential to flourish instead of always being stymied and barren. For some reason, Michelle Pfeiffer is coming to mind right now, and white oleander. Okay, and I think white oleander is poisonous, but it looks beautiful. A lot of our relationships looked beautiful. Maybe we were in our own version of narcissism, and by that I say not a narcissist, but being vain, prideful about our partners. Maybe we valued something about them that we did not value within ourselves. That's why, all the cliches and every drag queen that Mama Ru specifically comes to mind when they say, how are you going to love someone if you don't love yourself? How are you going to love someone else if you don't love yourself? It starts there. It's so cliche, but until you go through enough abuse, unfortunately, you get to the point where it's like loving myself is no longer an option or something I do on a bored self care day. It is how I govern myself every day. And that means that you're going to attract to you because you are now in a vibrational alignment with someone who also loves themselves, who also has self care days that aren't just a day, it's a consistent energy in their soul. Someone whom you can build with. Now, let's talk about this. In my journey, the partner that was the most stubborn and stymieing and was the worst karma for me was someone who went out of their way to make sure I couldn't build. Meaning, whatever I was trying to build, they wanted me to perceive myself as a failure because that's how they saw themselves. Narcissists have a lot of energies that they will project outwards to us, right? That they feel about themselves. So their self-loathing, their lack of poverty consciousness is something that they wanted to project. It is not to say that I didn't come with a heavy heaping of my own, meaning if we're coming from the narcissistic empath dynamic with a parent who taught us to become the empath, another video coming up here about that, then what we will do is get into situations where we don't feel like we're enough and we don't value ourselves. That's what these narcissistic relationships are here to teach us. It's not just so that we're in the perpetual loop with narcissists for the rest of our lives. It is so that we learn self worth in its truest form, which is a repellent to any narcissist. If you want to get rid of a narcissist, tell them the truth right to their face. I mean, some of you guys be careful with that. Now, I wasn't able to build, and it was because she had a self-fulfilling prophecy that she was not able to build and she was a failure. And she thought, who the hell do you think you are to want to build and to have all these ideas? Nothing you think can work, nothing you say can work. Except then I realized that upon separation and upon meeting new energies and new people and new connections, that in fact I wasn't bad at building at all. In fact, I was really good. It turns out that I am articulate. uh, mm, I'm not saying this because I'm making a video, but it turns out that I did communicate well. It turns out that I did convey what I wanted. It turns out that I knew how to get exactly what I needed, exactly what I wanted, and exactly what was going to be nourishing for me and someone else that I wanted to build with. That is the power of disconnecting from something that could be a time waste. F boys, narcissist, all of that are time sucks. That person never wanted to see me have success with them because they had already decided it was impossible. However, exactly what I wanted is exactly possible, and I may have manifested and still am in the process of full manifestation. One thing specifically to help you guys wrap your mind around this. In my life, the way my chart's set up and the way my energy in life is set up, I thought with the person that I was manifesting that we were going to have some spiritual team travel beyond the road, communicate, do lectures, various things, similar to what's happening here, because they had a gifting, but it was corrupted. Their gifting was corrupted and then also taken upon, some of the fallout, excuse me, and stuff like that that happened in the last few years as a spiritual kind of consequence and retribution for bad behavior and for misusing power. That's another thing you might want to think about with the person that you were building. Did they misuse power? That means that even if you don't think that they were being overt with their misuse of power, that they may have been passive aggressively sabotaging you, because someone with that personality profile will do those things. Okay. So fast forward to building new connections. the spirituality component that I thought that person had, that I thought could only be found in that person, silly, silly me, is more authentically found in another person who actually is gifted and willing to help me build whatever the dream is. They're just willing to help build the dream. And it's effortless. And it's not to say that any dream being built takes no effort, but it is to say that the initial blueprint planning stage is not as complicated. It took me years to get through the blueprint planning stage with the other person. They were not self motivated, they were not self interested, they were not self taught. They just didn't do some of the things that some of these other connections are doing. And this is not about a comparison about are they bad or are they good, but let's talk about contrast. Maybe this is semantics. Contrast, not compare. There is a stark contrast between who I was building with and thought was built I was building with, to who the right actual connection was for me. Does that make sense, guys? And the same is true for you. What I realized is how incompatible me and the past person that I was unable to build with were, and how, even if there's still work to be done, how much more compatible me and other connections are. This is something that you only get upon having, unfortunately, some of the worst experiences with those narcissistic or toxic exes. I didn't realize how much time I was wasting investing into trying to get her to help build with me, when someone else came in and said every single thing that I ever probably wanted to hear, or got pretty close to all of the things, and definitely was all of the things that I wanted the past connection to be, if that makes sense. So protective, fiercely protective, and kind, and emotionally available, and consistent, and communicative, even if it wasn't communication that I always 1000% agreed with. That is the power of a connection that you can build with. Because even if this person and I don't always see eye to eye, what I now know is I have a willing participant, not an undercover saboteur, not a hidden enemy. Scorpio, that house, the eighth house, is ruled by Scorpio in our astrology charts. That rules open enemies, okay? Hidden and open enemies. So this is something you both see and cannot see. And sometimes the person that we're in the relationship is in fact the enemy. We are sleeping with the enemy. And even if it's not a sexual connection, it's purely platonic. Sometimes you can be friends with someone who is the enemy. What does that look like? You can't build with a friend if it's just platonic, if they're wishing ill on your success or your gains. Many of us have been in that situation where we've had people where we could just tell they weren't happy for us, and we would hide our positives, our raises, our bonuses, our 20-pound weight loss, whatever happened good for us, we would hide that. Pardon me, guys. Mm. We would hide that away because we didn't want to be judged, or we didn't want someone to stomp that down. That is a survival mechanism, empath listening, that we learned with our narc parents early on, okay? How to read the room so that we could survive and we can cope. But that is not the way that we're supposed to live. When you have someone you can build with, you don't have to hide the good. They are genuinely happy for you. Every time there's communication about a success for you, it's a success for them, because when you are not living in a lack and poverty consciousness, you celebrate other people's wins. You are genuinely happy when other people get houses and cars, or things that you may think that you covet or want, or relationships, because you know that your time is coming. And that is the principle. If you work hard, eventually we all get a chance to shine. We all get our moment in the sun, whatever that may be, whatever we have manifested. But if you are trying to build a relationship with someone who is diametrically opposed to your ethos, values, and your own desires for the future, you will just bang your head against the wall. A very Sagittarian, unevolved Sagittarian, no offense for my evolved ones here, thing to do. Run into a brick wall over and over and over again. That is not what we are designed for. Do not invest your time building with someone who doesn't really want to build with you. People will tell you with their words, with their lack of words, with their body language, and with their behavior that they're not interested in building with you. And that's why when we're not listening, sometimes we watch people go into other relationships and it's like, they built this so quickly with them. I was trying to build this with them for years. I counsel women and men every single day that are in casual relationships, and so many of them are empaths, and that's the next video I'm going to make when I get off of this live. So many of them are empaths, and they are in this potential loop, is what I call it, where they're just in this loop waiting for the potential to come to fruition and to blossom, when they might be dealing with a real piece who has no intention of blossoming, whose only mission in this life may be to be a catalyst for growth. That was certainly the person that I dealt with in the past, who refused to build with me and who I realized had no interest in really building. They just liked the idea. It sounded fun. It was a fun, chaotic thing to do because time can be wasted when you don't have aim. And that may be some of the people that you have dated, you may have felt the same, that they were aimless, and that means that they will put you on an aimless path. Here's what you do. It's important to vet your new connections and prospects in whatever capacity, whether it's platonic friendship, whether you're connecting with a new cousin in your family that you've never really been friends with, but you're like, let me see if our values are the same, they seem kind of cool, whether it is an actual like more connection, a deeper, a coworker connection, maybe it's lovers, maybe it's dating, whatever the case may be, you get to see if someone can build with you. And this goes across the board from every relationship. We all, like as a teacher, we assess children that are going to work with us in the classroom, right? We assess who our leaders are going to be. We know who we might need to give an extra hand, who our dawdlers are going to be. So this principle applies. Who's going to build with you? Even as a teacher, I assessed which kid was going to work with me in that school year to help build the structure in the classroom that I needed. I want you to carry that over to your spouses, carry it over to your own kids, carry it over to your coworkers and your bosses. If you're an empath, this is one of your superpowers. Here's the fine print. You have the power of discernment. You are able to perceive when you, especially if your attraction level isn't a factor. The only time that this doesn't work so well is if it's more than platonic, okay? So if you are attracted, our discernment goes down greatly. And that's why abstinence before you decide is important. And I never thought I would say that, guys, but I realize as an energy worker how powerful our sexual connections are. So yes, this can be used with every single relationship you have across the board, every form of love, eros, agape, everything. However, when it comes to your romantic, this is so important because it will save you from wasting time. Yeah, sometimes we need those lessons, but do we need them for 6 and 7 and 8 and 10 and 12 years? It reminds me of an interview that Rihanna said, I loved a man so much and I didn't love myself that I went back to him even after he did that to me. We also, when she went back to Chris Brown temporarily while he was dating Karrueche. This is what happens when we haven't fully healed and when we don't love ourselves. Was it wrong for her to do that? No, we can make a judgment on it now, but an unhealed heart thinks that you can build with someone who clearly wasn't trying to build with her. That doesn't mean that they didn't have their own careers, but it is to say Rihanna's a billionaire, correct? She surpassed Chris, who was the primary star in their day. That's another message for those of you here that built with people that may have thought that they were better than you and thought that their presence or their aesthetic would parlay them into a greater sense of standing or fame, and they were sabotaging your relationship and not wanting to be associated with your name and not wanting to build with you because they thought so highly of themselves. A true narcissist, right? The definition of narcissus from the Greek mythology. So if that was the case, guys, and then you surpass them in whatever capacity, you need to understand that it is okay for you to know to manifest in a partner with whom you can build. We watch Rihanna date various people and she's dating someone now, but the point is she got whole within herself. So anybody she dates is ancillary, it's an afterthought, it doesn't define her. While when she was unhealed and broken, and I'm not saying she's this perfect paragon of emotional healing, she may still have things to work on, we do not know. But what I will say is while she was deeply unhealed, being a Pisces sun with a predilection towards masochistic relationships, unhealed Pisces, lower vibration. Pisces, we all have a duality. All of us have been lower vibration or higher, depending. Will find themselves in masochistic and abusive relationships, and they have a tendency to be escapist through drugs, alcohol, sex, whatever, addictive personalities. So she was in a love addiction, to be sure, with a toxic abuser, narcissist energy that is Chris Brown. And because she hadn't healed, she had made the mistake of thinking maybe I could rebuild with him. And she acknowledged that when she did that interview with Oprah, that in fact she was silly for thinking that, not because she's a silly girl, but because her sweet, empathetic self hadn't healed, and upon reflection, she realized that the same may be true of you. If you're still attracted to your toxic ex, there's more healing to do. That's no judgment. That's why you're here to heal. It takes time. Rome was not built in a day, but you can move on to something else, and someone else is mighty fine and much better for you in every way, boo. Someone that actually wants to work with you and not against you. Someone that is not a saboteur. Someone that knows that you can have success, knows how to get it, knows what for, and how to get to a place. And they want to be vetted. I like that. Someone that wants to build with you is going to be vetting you too. Even if they find some things that are hinky that they don't understand, or they may have some apprehensions about. Let's say it's a romantic situation and someone might perceive you as flirty, right? But they're really checking you out because they're interested. They want to see what you're about, but they want to see, do you have the stick and stay? Are you consistent? That may be something that happens when you're building with someone who you can build with. It doesn't mean that everything is perfect and that you guys will not have things that you kind of assess with one another, but it means that you have a greater possibility and higher degree of success than you ever did in your past connections. That's the message. Can you build with them? Because it's not even worth picking up the pen to begin to draw out the blueprint. Forget about the nails, forget about the hammer. It's not even worth picking up the pen if you can't build with them. They will just do nothing but waste your time. One last example is Jay-Z and Damon Dash. Jay-Z and Damon Dash were partners who had an idea to build. They were karmic soulmates. I always say I'm going to do a video about this, but I have yet to do it. But from my perspective, they were karmic soulmates. Sometimes a karmic soulmate's not meant to stay in your life forever up close and personal. They're there to be a catalyst. And what happened with Jay-Z and Damon Dash is not to say that Jay-Z was a saint, because Jay-Z was known for being shisty. He's a businessman, not a businessman, as he says. What does he say? Let me handle my business, man. King of the double, triple, and quadruple entendres. However, he is a businessman, and he had a karmic partner, soulmate, even though it was just his friend and completely platonic, that was sabotaging the F out of him on a regular basis and was making a mockery. Jay-Z wanted to move in different circles. He wanted to swim with the bigger sharks. He is now officially a billionaire, and he had a vision for his life. Empath. You get the message? Can you relate? Can you hear? Can you hear me now? He had a vision for his life, and he had someone who was super fun and was part of his younger youth, or part of a part of himself that was true. Meaning there was a grimy, shisty street dude in Jay-Z, just like there was in Damon, right? So it's not to say that we are like our narcissists, but it is to say that our trauma bonding and our wounds matched up, maybe from the past connection. So he had this connection with this guy and the trauma bond of where they came from and making it, and Damon was the enforcer, but Damon was also a jackass, and he made a mockery of things. And in order for Jay-Z to ascend, he had to break up with, split off from Damon until he could get his life together. And then they reunited again years down the road. Not all of us are promised that, and I'm not saying that's what we should shoot for, but I will tell you that Jay-Z made the right decision, because the proof is in the pudding and the proof is in their bank accounts. That's another video that I do have up here. If you can't tell if they're a karmic connection, soulmate, or a narcissist, check your bank account. If you're gaining or losing, you're going to know who this person is, because energy is shared and it's transferred on all levels, on multi-D. So that's the 3D, the 4D, the 5D, and the 6D and beyond. Meaning how we feel right now is the 3D. The 5D is the esoteric realm, 3, 5D, 6D above that, esoteric realm. So if someone is toxic for you energetically, it will physically manifest in your life. You will either get sick, you will have nondescript illnesses. For empaths, we suffer with that a lot. Fibromyalgia, other various things that seem lupus diagnoses that seem like nondescript, stomach illnesses that are mysterious, Crohn's disease. All these things have diagnoses. However, they are under a classification of things that are associated with stress that we take on as an empath. So my point in saying all of this to you is that you have to be very careful about who you are attached to, and anybody that you're attached to can be draining of your energy, and if they are draining your energy and they're physically making you ill, you certainly can not build. What we watched Jay-Z do was we watched him build. And why did he build? Because he stepped away from someone who was toxic AF. Did he love homie? Yes, he did. Was that his bestie for like the best part of his life, or for the youngest part of his life? Yes, I wouldn't say it was for the best part because when you're jumping off of yachts in San Tropez and you've got Bay and your Bay Bays there with you, then apparently the best was yet to come. That's what a lot of us need to get real focused on. We think that whatever we had with toxic Mr. or Mrs. in our past was so amazing. Y'all, it was trash. It was basura. When you know what comes up for you once you get into a real connection with someone who's willing to build, even if they're not perfect, even if you guys don't see fully eye to eye, but they are at least willing to build, you have gotten the hardest part to pass you by. Then you can actually take off and fly. Sometimes disconnecting from someone that could have held you back is the best thing that you can do, because I promise you, no matter what capacity, whether it's a friend or a new connection in a family, or it's a new coworker, or it's a new job opportunity, or it's a new lover, I promise you, you get a new boo. One that's willing to actually collaborate and not just commiserate with you. Sometimes the commiseration is proper, it's appropriate, right? We have a mate to commiserate, yeah? Sometimes we need to talk about a thing, but it's not all that. It's not all pessimism. It's not all jealousy. It's not all jealous pity party rages and self loathing and depression and false suicide energies. Guys, you know what we have dealt with people that were toxic and abusive and manipulative. You can't build with them because all they're ever building is a tower of babble, a tower of bullshit, and nothing is ever grounded properly. There is no foundation. If you can't build with them, you're wasting your time. And if you think that because you've never built with anybody properly, that you don't classify as divine, you are wrong. Think again, you are divine, and that's why you're here. And that's the prediction for you, my loves. For those of you that are not in a building mode or even a vetting mode, your angels want you to know the person with whom you will do so with is near. I am so happy to be the bearer of that good news. Behold, I bring you good tidings, glad tidings. You have the opportunity to have a place where your heart can be abiding with someone who is of like mind, soul, and personality. And even if there are differences and discrepancies, they are fair and they want to build with thee. I love you guys so much. Come back and join me next time, and we will continue to evolve together. Okay, let's see here. This message was meant for me. Meek Meek, I'm so glad. Sorry. I'm so glad. Okay, I'm going to get out of here. I'm going to jump back on with another live if I've got it in me. Come back and join me guys next time, and we will continue to evolve together. Oh, I got $1. Where's my thing? There we are.